You're listening to I Love It When, and I'm your host, Mo. I'm a speaker, coach, and connector. You're in the right place if you're looking for some inspiration and you're ready to truly embrace who you are. My intention with this podcast is to help you see that you are so much more powerful than you realize. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of I Love It When. I'm your host, Mo. And today I have a special guest with you, someone who is a local business owner right here in Everett, Washington. Her name is Yesenia, and she owns a business called Life Inc. by Bee. And so one of the things I noticed about Yesenia when I first met her was her presence and her ability to bring healing to people. I met her about a year and a half ago through the Downtown Everett Association. The Downtown Everett Association is a fabulous group of people who are doing a variety of things to help the city grow and for people to get to know more about who actually is here in Everett and all the amazing businesses and community members that we have. And so I actually taught a class around self-care for entrepreneurs at Yesenia's studio. And she led the meditation. And so I had this opportunity to get to meet her before the class. And I was just really impressed with her as a human, her soul, her presence, her energy, and what she's doing with her life in this business. And so her voice is one that I would like to amplify through this podcast platform because she has things to share. I actually told her after the podcast recording, I was like, you need to start your own podcast. She has a lot to say, and I'm really excited for you guys to hear this episode. She provides a variety of things to the people who enter her studio, but some of those things are sugaring, lip blush tattoo, cosmetic tattoo, scar camouflage, areola restoration, lash lifts, and then she also does meditation, both on one-to-one, like if you just want to meet with her one-to-one, or in small groups. And she will also co-host events quite often with sound healers or breathwork practitioners and many, many more. So please go ahead and follow her on Instagram for the latest updates around what classes or workshops she has coming up. And I'll tell you, I've been to a number of different classes now in her space, and it's always a beautiful experience and one of the most calming things I can do for myself during the week. So now I want to read you a little bit about her background and her bio that she gave me. And sometimes I feel compelled to read them, sometimes not. But in this case, I do really, because she has such a variety of experiences to share. So she is passionate about all things that bring us closer into balance while navigating our individual realities' daily demands. She strives to create an atmosphere of safety, freedom of expression, and self-love in her studio and through her various offerings, which include cosmetic tattooing, organic hair removal, and aim to help strengthen our community's spiritual immune system through mindfulness practices, breathwork, and meditation. Prior to being in personal wellness, which has been over the last 7 years for her, her career as a language interpreter spanned over 18 plus years and has taken her to many interesting places, as well as meeting equally wonderful people from all walks of life. This has allowed her to observe and learn how collectively, although we are very different from one another, we are very similar in our joys, our pain, trauma, fears, anxiety, and unrest. And she believes that through our shared and acknowledged feelings that we can further develop a greater compassion and grace for oneself and each other. I loved her bio, so I just had to read it to you. So the things that we cover in this episode today are around her journey to opening a wellness studio, how she defines and utilizes her intuition, how she experiences the unseen in both little and big ways, and then the various ways that you can work with Yesenia as an individual, as a business, and a community member. So I can't wait for you to get into this episode and have a chance to meet with her. Please reach out to her and let her know what you think of this episode. And let me know if you have any questions. We will definitely be having Yesenia back. She's got a lot of things to share. Enjoy. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of I Love It When. I'm your host, Mo, and I'm super excited to introduce you to Yesenia today, who is local to Everett, Washington. So Yesenia, I want to have you start out by just sharing a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Thank you, Mo, for having me on. I really appreciate this opportunity to come on to your podcast. So as you said, I am here in Everett. I'm a local business owner. I'm originally from California, but you could say I was pretty much raised here in Washington as well. I've been here for over 20 years. And I own a personal wellness studio located in downtown Everett, right across the street from the beautiful Shack Art Center. So my personal wellness studio, I have a variety of offerings. I am a licensed esthetician and a paramedical tattoo artist. So I do cosmetic tattooing as well. And as one of the many hats that I do wear is also I lead meditation. So I'm a meditation teacher as well.
I love that. So one of the things we're going to get into today that you all will hear as you're listening to this episode is, and Yesenia and I were just talking about this before I pressed record, but really looking at business kind of in a different way. And I want to showcase all the different things that you do, because there are so many different ways that individuals can interact with you through your services that you just mentioned. There's ways that businesses can interact with you, community members. And so I think this is going to give people a better idea of exactly how they could work with you and the benefit that you could bring to them, both personally and professionally. So I'm really excited for people to get to know you more today. It's going to be fun. Yeah. So let's start off a little bit about, you have an amazing journey that I've been fortunate enough to hear about as we've gotten to know each other over the last year and a half. But share a little bit about your journey to what you're doing now. How did you get to this place where you decided to have a wellness studio?
Wow, that is that is a big question. And although I think I could say that everything that I've done pretty much has always led me to wanting to create a business like what I have now. Okay. I've always wanted to have a space where I could create a little bit of safety, security, joy, and peace. How do you monetize that? I just didn't know that, Yes. Because it's like, how do you encapsulate all those wonderful feelings, and the wonderful joy that you want to share? For me, I think it really cemented for myself back in during my journey in I was pursuing law enforcement at the time. And in listening to myself, I knew that there was something off during this process. And that's a whole nother story, in and of itself. But I think the reason that I pinpoint that time period in my life was because I took being more compassionate with myself and really stopping to think about what was really going on, what was really something that I was needing to do. I guess listening to myself a bit more instead of just going. And I think that's where I was. I was on autopilot. I was doing the things that made sense to me, following what I thought I wanted. But I think I was just pressing go instead of really checking in with myself. And during that process, I did have a health scare that really just completely stopped me in my tracks, stopped the whole process for me. So anyhow, in doing that, I had to slow down completely. I had to completely reevaluate what it is that I wanted to do, or whether or not this was a true fit for me and where I was at that present time. I guess in doing that, I really stopped to see that that journey, really, that part of the journey was just not for me. And anywho, I dove into my spirituality, I guess, as one does oftentimes when we find ourselves in, difficult moments. And I really started focusing in on my meditation practice. In doing so, once it was time for me to decide whether or not I was going to move forward with that part of my journey into law enforcement, I realized with the newfound consciousness that I had gained, that really was just not it. So I threw myself into meditation, into yoga, into really just bringing myself a little bit more wholeness. Because I felt so disorganized, just mentally, emotionally. I had put myself through the ringer, and I realized that coming out of that, I felt pretty lost. And so in doing so, I started thinking about some things I could do with to be able to move my career along or pivot into something new, right?
Yeah.
And yes, that word, pivot. Um,
Pivot comes up
but
again.
yeah, and it does, right? In our journey, we pivot so often, and I think it's
Mhm.
when we are so reluctant to do so, even though the universe is pushing us in that direction,
Yes.
the more we stop and stagnate,
Yes.
the more difficult it becomes when you
Yes.
really do it.
Which is why
Um,
I love what you're doing now, just even what we've talked a little bit about and what we'll talk about more on the podcast of just opening yourself up to what's possible and not needing to know exactly what's going to come from it, but just knowing that by being open and going with those little nudges and signs that you receive, something will happen. Something will flower that we can't even say what it is. Uh, but I want to go back to what you talked about with getting started in meditation. And also, I love what you said about how it often takes things like a medical event or some sort of traumatic event in our life in order to get us to slow down and stop. What helped you to start meditation? Did you have a teacher or did you go to YouTube, or what got you to that place where you uh, were able to like slow down enough to try it? Because I talk to so many people that really struggle with implementing it.
yeah, thank you. That's actually something that I've gone back to a lot of the times, like when talk to some of my clients now currently, or even students, it seems like such a big on taking, right? To say, oh, I'm going to sit and meditate. It's like so
Mm-hmm.
big. For me, I had meditated very casually. I used to pop in my headphones when I used to go train to get into the police academy. So I used to pop in my headphones and listen to sometimes just audio,
Mm-hmm.
just guided meditation while I was running. So it would help me get some of that clutter out of my mind
Yeah.
and be able to focus on my breath. So
Okay.
that I knew, even just the most basic of things, I knew that in order for me to expand my lungs and get a little bit better at running, I had to do some things, right? And so those tools I had already started implementing. However, when I really did a deeper dive, it was me joining a meditation group so I can
Okay.
really truly um, give myself a bit more stricter parameters, because
Mm-hmm.
my mind is so, I having ADHD, I think that
Yeah.
always plays a part for me. It's
Mm-hmm.
something that I always have to be kinder to my mind instead of fighting it all the time. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think with that, it allowed me to have a bit more structure going
Mm-hmm.
into group meditation for a while, until I felt a bit more confident to sit with myself
Yeah.
and be able to discipline myself into my own personal practice.
That's
Yeah,
amazing. So is that something that you offer at your studio then, group meditations for people to
I
join?
do. I
Okay.
do. I do offer small group meditation, and I do one-on-one meditation as well. I know,
Okay.
like I was just mentioning, there are some clients that I think it feels so big for them to come and do it in a group setting.
Mm-hmm.
And I love being able to have my personal studio here. It's private,
Mm-hmm.
and we get to do one-on-ones. And yeah, that's
That's
one of the
awesome.
things I get to do here.
That's a great introduction for people who I haven't thought to suggest that before. So now I'm going to keep that in mind when I'm talking to clients, because I definitely have worked with people who struggle with ADHD or ADD and are like, I can't sit still. And so I'm always telling them, well, you don't have to sit still. You could go for a walk. You could run with it. But to have a group that would support you in the discipline of it and also just be around other people while you're doing it, I think would be really helpful. Yeah.
For sure. I think that that's definitely something that one of the things that I had mentioned to you before, I do strive to create that a little bit of more safety and community,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes that's what we need. Being in
Yeah.
each other's space, being able to share each other's energy makes a
Mm-hmm.
big difference as well.
Really
Sometimes I
does.
think it even helps to elevate you in that sense, as to be able to
100%.
share that collective energy of like searching for something a little bit better.
Hmm. Yeah, I can think of many times where usually when I'm by myself, I have a very mellow, kind of neutral energy that's just calm, and I can get excited. But I've realized when I'm around people, it feeds my energy, and so I can get really joyful or really uplifted by other people around me that are feeling uplifted, or when we're doing something like that. It's very peaceful. Yeah. Could you talk a little bit about the name of your business, Life Inc. by B? I when I first when I first met you, it was because we I had taught a class at your studio, hosted by the Downtown Everett Association, and I was immediately drawn in by your logo, by the name of your business, by everything you did, and I was like, why do I not know this woman? How have I not met her yet? And so, could you talk a little bit about how you came to that name and what it means for you?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Life Inc. by B. So that's my pseudonym. That's my business name. I also go by B. B like a little bumblebee. I have a bunch of them tattooed on me. The name B was kind of given to me a few years ago when I was working at the company I used to work at previously. And I would love to tell you that has a huge story. It kind of does and doesn't at the same time, but I felt that it was a very neutral name.
Yeah.
And I already love bees. They signify life for me, right?
Yeah.
So Life Inc. One of the aims that I have with this business is to be able to work in conjunction with cancer survivors and also with people experiencing needing to undergo gender affirming tattooing. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, I didn't want to specify one specific thing
Mm-hmm.
that I was going to specialize in. So I wanted to do something where we could do life, we could do
Mm-hmm.
ink, and
Mm-hmm.
we could do it by me, Life Inc.
I
by
love that.
B.
Yes,
Yeah.
that makes total
Thank
sense. And
you.
I like how you intentionally did it in such a way that you could have a wide variety of activities. That's absolutely what I did when I thought about my business too, is I didn't want to pigeonhole myself in one thing, one particular thing. Um, awesome. Hey, I'm popping in for a moment to let you know that if you're interested in working with me one-on-one in a small group, or you'd like to attend one of my upcoming retreats, please reach out or add yourself to my email list. You can go to iloveitwhen.org and scroll to the bottom where you'll see there's a spot to sign up. I also love to speak, teach, and create experiences for small, medium, or large size companies. If you know someone that I should know, please connect us. I'm looking to utilize I Love It When to create global change, and that will require collaborating with all of you. You're all so much more powerful than you realize. Remind yourself of that today. Well, I kind of want to jump into some of the conversations that you and I have a lot when we get a chance to hang out is talk about intuition. And I'm wondering
Mhm.
if you can talk a little bit about how you define what intuition is and how you utilize it in your life, both personally and professionally.
Oh, I think intuition is really just an inner knowing
Mm-hmm.
and an inner listening. You know, I would love to say it's super magical, and it can be.
Yeah.
But I really think it's just as basic as just our inner listening.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that sometimes we just have too many things going on for us to hear ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a matter of really finding some space to get quiet, get quiet with yourself and asking those questions of yourself. What is it? What is it that you really want? What is it that you really need? And listening in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's intuition for
Mm-hmm.
myself. As a matter of fact, I was going to say something that had I not listened to my intuition, I probably would not have been aware of what was going on with my body all those years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I had already passed all of the testing that I needed to be a candidate for the police academy. Everything
Okay.
was a go for me. There was nothing. I had also passed my medical testing,
Okay.
but I knew something was off with my body. Like there was something in me that was telling me something's off.
Mm-hmm.
Had I not listened, I probably wouldn't have been able to, address those concerns and those health concerns that I had at the time. I probably wouldn't have taken those steps to stop myself enough
Mm-hmm.
to take care of myself. As far as being able to, how it serves me personally and in business, is that what you had asked me?
Yeah.
I think it's synonymous, really, specifically, and I think businesses like ours,
Mm-hmm.
where they are, human based,
Mm-hmm.
and we deal with, people. I think it's both. I think for me, it transfers over. I love having wonderful clients, wonderful students. And I think oftentimes it's leaning into that intuition of what works and what doesn't work for me. Oftentimes it feels like resistance when it's not aligned with my intuition, and you feel it.
Yeah.
And you go against it and it doesn't work out the way you thought it was gonna. You could see in hindsight, I could have just listened to myself, It really is that simple. I'd love to make it so flowery and like a wonderful thing. And it can be, like I said, but it is that basic. I think it's just trusting oneself to listen.
Well, I love that your example of the story with the police department, because, and you said earlier that it was really about slowing down enough and listening to yourself and being compassionate with yourself. And that is, and everybody can access that. That's the beauty of it too. Yeah.
And I think that that's the biggest part to learn to be compassionate with ourselves, giving ourselves the grace that we need. Because it's so easy to be hard on ourselves. Right. And it's so, and it's so accepted. Like it's easy to say, oh, how are you doing? And ask somebody and it just goes sideways. Oh, well, if you really want to hear, it's all these negative things. But, for me, I think finding a greater compassion for when I don't listen to my intuition, finding a bit more grace in knowing the why I probably didn't at that moment, giving myself a bit of grace, and then circling back around that hopefully for the next time around, I'll listen a bit better.
Yeah. It's interesting I like how you said it's possible. I see a lot of people make it really flowery and really big and there are big magical things that can happen. But what I've recognized is that it's in all the little things that happen every single day. And to celebrate those little things and recognize them brings more of it. And so I like to record them sometimes if I feel like I'm if I've lost my connection, or if I feel like I've been caught up in something that's just too human or too much in my head, then I'll start to track the things to get myself back to that place of being more aware of just all the beauty that happens every day all around me. So I love that you said that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's true. I think also for me, staying, and I'm sure you've probably heard this plenty of times, staying in the frequency of gratitude. It really does make so much difference. I've had days where the day just seems to disappear right under you. Like, where did the day go? And I had no time to accomplish the things that I needed to, and because oftentimes I think we don't get a chance to slow down. So when we do, it is just finding that small moment to say, okay, well, I made it to this point in the day. There's something great that happened, and taking that moment to stop and say thank you for whatever that was. I think it does allow for a little bit of that magic to start popping in, and then therefore, getting yourself back into that level of frequency that it's easier for you to listen to your intuition at that point.
It's so true. Yeah, there are definitely times when I have to, again, have the discipline to pull myself back into a positive place and say, okay, I'm grateful for my hands. I'm grateful for my fingers. I'm grateful for every single thing I have. It's a really good practice to do. My next question for you. Yeah. My next question for you is kind of a fun one, because I think you never really know what's gonna come up from it. But I'm wondering, what do you wish more people knew about you? And I love that too, because it kind of goes along with what you're doing right now, which for those of you that are listening, like we mentioned, I think at the beginning of the podcast, you're really opening yourself up more and more and stepping out and talking about your business more. And I think it's just fantastic to watch. And so I'm curious what you do wish more people knew about you.
I love that question. I love that question because, I thought about it a lot. Like, I know you gave me a preview of this, and I did think about this one a lot. Truthfully, I'm not sure what else I'm deciding now to share a lot more, like you mentioned, about myself and my business. And Um, I don't know. I don't know, Mo.
That's
You stumped
okay.
me on this one. I don't know what else because I'm truly like I'm truly lost on this one. I
Okay.
don't know.
Okay. Well,
The
can I
fact that I
tell you
guess
something that, oh, go ahead.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say that the fact that I'm taking so many new looks at business and
Mm-hmm.
how it can flow better and how I can, re-energize it in a more of a direction that seems to be aligned with who I am right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think just being able to be open with exactly like what you said, with whatever comes next, I think
Mm-hmm.
that for me, I don't know what that looks like for me either.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to tell you, this is what I need you to know now. I
Yeah.
love being able to think about this business as a forever evolving
Yeah.
and maybe in the direction that, best suits our community
Mm-hmm.
and, myself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry.
That's okay. This is kind of a perfect segue. What I'll say for people that are listening, I think what I wish that more people knew about you is I wish people knew what it felt like to be in your presence. Because I think that's when you meet someone in person, it's so different from listening over the podcast or even over video. But when you meet someone and you're in the room with them and you can really sense their energy, even if you're someone who's not very aware of your energy, you can sense it somewhere, somehow. And you have such a supportive and vibrant and loving energy that I know that's why people come back to you for their different, whether it be for sugaring or tattoo or meditation or the other breath work or classes that you host in your studio. It's because they feel safe in that environment. And so that's what I wish, and that's what I hope that this podcast does, is that it brings more people into your presence, because I think there's a lot that you can help and that you are helping with in terms of raising the frequency of Everett, raising the frequency of the world through what you're providing. So that's what I wish more people knew about you. Yeah.
Thank you. I
But
appreciate
that,
that.
oh yeah. What this segues though, when you were speaking, it brought up for me, what would you like to see happen with your business? Because we've seen it, we've talked about it a little bit, how there are some other ways that you'd like to interact with other businesses in Everett, for example. So what are some of your dreams about working with businesses or working with community members?
Well, let's see. One of the dreams that I've had, as of recently in this last year, I've really been mulling over the idea of being able to collaborate and work with some of our small businesses. I've been very
Mm-hmm.
fortunate to have some of my clients are their own business owners. They're other
Mm-hmm.
business owners. There are these people who are, heads of their own departments. And something I guess that I'm realizing being in business for myself is how we're all equally stressed.
Yes.
We're
Yes.
so all equally stressed, and it's a lot of the same. It's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the same things. So, one of the things that I've really been working on is being able to create something, maybe a structure of to bring in more of a B2B
Mm-hmm.
um, environment, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's me going to, a small business here locally or
Mm-hmm.
inviting them into the studio, creating a designated day for each business. And
Oh, I love that.
I think it would be so enriching to each other, and it would
Mm-hmm.
just create more of a community, support system.
Mm-hmm.
I like being able to think about it in that way, to be able to support each other as opposed to
Yes.
me teaching you what to do, when you're
Yes.
stressed. It's
Yeah.
I love thinking about it in that way because I hear it. I hear it from, when I have a client here in studio. Oh, it's a lot of, like I said, it's a lot of the same thing. We're all struggling with the same overwhelm,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of us don't know what to do about it.
Mm-hmm. So true.
You can tell somebody to slow down, but how?
Yeah. And
How
when
do
their
you do
body's
it?
already in that overwhelmed space, yeah, you're making me think of so many people I've recently talked with who are, they have so much going on that if I'm talking to them, whether it be a coaching call or just as a friend, I'm like, I have to break it down to one thing, because they have so many things happening financially, spiritually, emotionally, physically, if they have friends or family or just multiple things going on in their lives, that I can see why people just spin and they can't stop. It's very
Yeah,
overwhelming.
it's so overwhelming, and then like it's the where do you start?
Yeah.
Where do you start? And then we've also convinced ourselves with the idea that we don't have the time for it,
Yes.
but we do, right?
Yes.
It's making that time.
Yeah.
And I think that in itself is being able to switch that mindset is
Yes.
something that
That's huge.
it's challenging for
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
people. So I'd like to just be able to bring it up
Mhm.
even in a sugaring session.
Yeah.
I recently had a client who, while we were in a sugaring session, as a matter of fact, I was guiding her how to breathe.
Okay.
And so she said, I didn't realize how much I hold my breath.
Oh
And,
my
well,
gosh.
fast forward, I was checking in on her about a week or so later, and she said, I used a breathing technique during a medical appointment
Oh
where
my
I was
gosh.
receiving really difficult news. And you're right, I don't realize how much I hold my breath.
Look at that right there.
And
You just created a ripple effect. Oh my gosh.
absolutely. And, and she said, I don't care how painful this is. I'm going to come back and see you until you stop sugaring. And
Okay,
so
that is
I love
amazing. I love
that.
that. Yes.
I
That's
do,
such a fabulous
because
example.
it's so autonomic,
Yeah.
the fact that we're just in such state of, we're so bound up
Hmm.
with information, with stress,
Hmm.
with just our anxiety. And I love
Hmm.
the fact that we're now just so much more openly talking about mental health.
Yes.
But even still, even though we've come so much, we've come forward in so many ways, to be able to address mental health. Yet I'll speak on this specifically,
Hmm.
but even still, as women, we
Yeah.
find it difficult,
Yeah.
right? Because we
Yeah.
still want to be able to champion it all. And
Yep.
that's what I noticed with a lot of, the boss ladies that I
Hmm.
have, and just all the different bodies that come into the studio.
Hmm.
We're all walking around with so much tense energy,
Hmm.
and just asking it to slow down and breathe seems like
Hmm.
such a task.
Hmm. It's
Yeah.
really, it's so true. Wanting to accomplish it all and feeling like you can't ask for help. You're not supposed to be able to have to ask for help. You should be able to do it all. Yeah.
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 And for whatever reason, it seemed like a sense of pride to be able to,
Yeah.
like,
There's a
it's
sense of
such a, we had
accomplishment and
created, yeah,
yeah.
we had created such an individualistic notion that it's more prideful to do it on your own and not ask for
Hmm.
help, and not seem like you needed the help.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. The not seem
and
like you
we
need the
both
help
know
thing is
it's,
interesting.
yeah, and it's sad, because that's not really who we are as people.
Hmm. Hmm.
We need each other.
Hmm.
And I think that coming out of such a heavy situation with COVID and everything, we realized,
Hmm.
wow, we really do need to be able to have a deeper sense of
Absolutely.
community.
Yeah. It's been really interesting sharing on the podcast different times in my business journey. I've been very honest with people outside of the podcast, and then I've shared on the podcast my journey with money and having to ask for help. And I've definitely gotten feedback from some people like, don't you think you probably shouldn't talk about that? You're a coach, you're a business owner, you're supposed to have it like figured out. And I was like, no, I'm not. And I wouldn't want to work with a coach who wasn't being completely honest with me about their journey. I actually would prefer to work with someone who has struggled, who has risked it all, leaning on their intuition, leaning on what they don't know. I want that kind of person in my life because I don't want that story you see like on social media where it's just the person making hundreds of thousands of dollars and you have no idea that, or you think that they got there magically when it's really, that's just not real life. And so
Yeah.
I think having those kind of real conversations just reminds everyone that you're human and it's not a bad thing to be human. It's actually a beautiful thing. Yeah.
I agree. And we've talked about this before. Diving into, or journeying into spirituality at whatever age or whatever stage, or whatever part of your journey, I think we all go through certain parts where it almost seems like, well, I think a lot of us do, it's all or nothing, right? You become super spiritual and everything is this.
Yes.
And then you realize unrealistic that is,
Mm-hmm.
because I love being human. I love
Mm-hmm.
this iteration of having a human experience. And I know that my soul is loving it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, maybe I wouldn't be here. At least that's how I see it personally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as much as my soul enjoys and really leans into wanting to be more self-realized, I also understand my human experience needs to be here too, right? So
Mm-hmm.
grounding
Mm-hmm.
myself in my humanity is, I
Yeah.
think, a big portion of where this journey has taken me back to.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is about that. It's about creating the connection with ourselves, with our human, with our body, with our spirit, with our mind, and not
Mm-hmm.
villainizing any part of that. And I think that that's
Yeah.
something we oftentimes do.
Yeah.
We want to be just in our spiritual realm
Yeah.
and just be holy and mighty and magical. And I think that's wonderful, but we're still here. We're still
Yes.
here, and
Yes.
there's still work to be done here.
Yes.
And I love that. And I think it's enjoying that portion that brings us a
Mm-hmm.
little bit closer to our own heart
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Totally. That's such that's such a good way to put it. How did you put it? Ground into your human body. You said something, a specific phrase. I'll have to listen back now and hear it again because I just was talking on the last podcast episode I recorded about embodiment and really what does that mean to embody the spiritual things or anything that you learn. Because I recognize there's a lot of times, especially in the spiritual community, where I've put people up on pedestals, and then I recognize that they're not actually embodying the work that they're talking about or the work that they're learning about. They're talking about it, learning about it, but not living it, and they're missing that piece where you get to integrate it into the human experience. And that has helped me to understand a lot more myself and that step of integration and how important it is. Like you said, because it's you're grounding into the fact that we are human and we're here to be human. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a big misconception. I
Mm-hmm.
feel, that during our journey, we are supposed to become disembodied. If anything, we're supposed to be more body connected. And I
Yeah.
think that's a lot of the lie that
Mm-hmm.
we tell ourselves, in order to be better or higher on our frequency or wherever
Mm-hmm.
this journey is taking us. Um, we're supposed to leave our humanity behind. And if anything, I think we need to reconcile with what that really means to us,
Mm-hmm.
and not be so individualistic on that thought process,
Mm-hmm.
because ultimately I think that is what it is. We're supposed to
Mm-hmm.
be here to commune with each other as
Mm-hmm.
humans
Yeah.
until we can create some kind of telepathic port and, all that.
Yes.
Until
Yeah.
then. But for now, I think this is where our journey is taking us.
Yeah. And now, one of the other things that you and I mean, I love talking about everything around spirituality with you and just life in general. And I was wondering, one of the questions I wrote down for you was, would you share a story with us about one of the times you experienced the spirit world or the unseen world? And because I love these stories, and
Oh,
yeah, it's a reminder for me that there's always energy around us.
oh yeah. Gosh, the unseen, I guess I should say first, culturally speaking, that has never really been something outside of my norm, to think about the unseen or
Mm-hmm.
even think about the spiritual world. I think
Mm-hmm.
culturally it's always been part of my background.
Yeah.
The I guess the interesting part of that is that growing up as a Mexican American person, there's a part of you that wants to assimilate to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for a long time, I wanted to shut that down. It just
Mm-hmm.
seemed a little too off to talk about it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
However, you and I have talked about plenty about this because I do believe we have different energies that hang out with us sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
that inhabit our spaces, that share our frequencies too. And I
Mm-hmm.
think being able to be a bit more receptive, and curious. I think that's a lot of it too, allowing our curiosity to open doors for us in those, in those moments. And I think sometimes those those special moments, I think they come in so many different ways. Sometimes it could be something bigger. For me, it sometimes is something small, like, for instance, yesterday, I'm cleaning up the studio. I'm cleaning up my studio and I'm repotting some of my pots. And as luck would have it, I have this small little altar, and I had found this white feather outside of my door. I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks ago. So I just picked it up and I put it on my altar. I thought it was pretty, so I just put it there. And so as I was cleaning up, how that feather made it out of my altar in front of me, I have no idea. But somehow it ended up in front of me. And so it made me smile and stop and think, sometimes things do happen around us, just to be small reminders to pull you back into your center, to take a stop and pause, maybe, and just be with it, be with whatever is there with you. As far as bigger moments, of unseen situations or the unseen, I like that term, by the way, the unseen. Okay. I do like that, because sometimes it really is that you can feel it, but you can't see it. I think a lot of it is that I think it's being receptive to energy, to just curious. Yeah. And the willingness, I think, is the biggest part. But yeah, I've had several little experiences, several interruptions, I guess.
I love also that you brought up your culture and having to assimilate to some, because I think the more that I've learned, especially over these last 10 years, is I've been tapping more into energy and learning more about the unseen and accepting that what I've known since I was a kid is real, and that I wasn't told by Western society and culture that it was okay. It's so disempowering to not acknowledge that part of of our human life, is that, yeah, there's energy around us all the time, and that's real. It's not made up. And I think it's just definitely been a way that I feel like this Western society has tried to control us by limiting our access to our natural intuition and to what we know is really real. And so that's why I love talking about it, and I love bringing it up, because as uncomfortable as it makes some people who I know listen or haven't been exposed to that, I think it's really important. And I have too many examples in my life now where the unseen has played a part that has added so much beauty and so much love and so many wonderful new people in my life that I can't not talk about it. Because this is actually a part of why I feel like I'm as happy as I am in my business, or as successful as I am. It's because I have this connection, and everybody can do it. Everybody has access to it. And so I feel like it's a part of my mission to ensure that people know that this is a safe space to talk about it. So I just appreciate you bringing that up, and that it's been a part of your life since you were born. Yeah,
it has, and thank you for highlighting that. It is that it's almost like a recognition, a self-recognition, something that's always been there.
Yeah.
And maybe it is part of the journey of self-acceptance as well, accepting that there is more instead of just what you've been taught or what you've been asked to tamp down a bit,
Yes.
Because there was there was several times, there was growing up that I remember hearing, just that the more attention you give that, you're just going to bring more energy to it. And we know that now, right? Wherever our thoughts go, our energy goes as well. Or wherever our energy goes, vice versa. That's where our thoughts are going to still stay, right? And I remember being, well, I'll share this with you. I remember being maybe about 15 years old and waking up with feeling there was someone next to me. And at that time, I slept in bunk beds. So whatever feeling I had was there's somebody standing next to me, right?
Okay.
And I remember just feeling it without even seeing it. And so with as scared as I was able to turn to, to the side of the bed, and I saw a shadowy image, something standing next to me. And it just froze me because I could feel it.
Yeah.
Anywho, I ended up crying because it was just so much.
Hmm.
My mom's reaction to that was, here, read the Bible, because it's probably something demonic. And
Yeah.
you're, and it became this moment where it was like, well, it's, what are you doing? And what are you doing to conjure up this stuff? So
Yeah.
it was more of a, oh no, what did I do?
Hmm. Hmm.
Right. But it was never, that didn't happen.
Hmm.
It was just, here, read this Bible. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
I don't know, looking back at those things, um, like I mentioned, I think it was always lingering in the background of my life.
Hmm.
Um, but it's really just being able to readjust my perspective too,
Yeah.
and what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that story. That's amazing. There's definitely been times where, like, the story that keeps popping in my head that I guess I'm supposed to share is one morning, I think it was about 2 years ago, I got up earlier than normal. It was probably 5 in the morning. I just couldn't sleep anymore. And I came out to my living room. And the first thing I always do is turn on my salt lamp. And it's just got a little clicker that you have to like turn the clicker, the little wheel to turn it on. So I turned it on. And then I walked towards the next lamp and I heard this click. And I turned around and it had clicked off. And I was like, huh, maybe the light bulb just went out. So I go back and I click it and nope, it turns back on. And I was like, oh, hi, Grandma. How are you doing? Because that is my grandmother. It was definitely my grandmother. She starts to play with lights more with me. And because I've become more and more open and more curious, like you talked about, I have less fear because there's nothing to be afraid of. And so I've really had that working around fear of the dark and fear of that. I think growing up, being like I should be afraid of spirits. That's been the biggest thing I've had to work on when it comes to the unseen, because there's actually nothing to be afraid of. But you're right, when you experience it, oh, my whole body was lit up and I felt like all my nerve endings were on fire in a way. Like, not a bad thing, but just like, what is she all of a sudden going to appear, or what's going to happen? Yeah.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
true. It is true. It's for, I guess, it is very palpable
Hmm.
when you feel something near you. But I think it also goes to speak on the fact that we always do fear what we don't know, or what
Yes.
we don't know well enough.
Yes.
And I guess that goes for every part of our lives, truly,
Yeah.
just fearing what we don't know.
Hmm. Yeah. And realizing that more and more we can be less afraid of what we don't know. There's so many
Yeah.
like beautiful, loving things that we'll miss out on if we don't ever explore that unknown, whether it be people we don't know, cultures we don't know, all sorts of different things. Yeah. For someone that's learning how to use their intuition, which is a topic I, again, like to bring up on the podcast, what are your top 2 or 3 tips for someone who's just learning how to lean into listening and being more compassionate with themselves and hearing that inner voice?
Okay. Let's see. You know, I think for everybody it's going to be different, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
everybody has a different starting point, and maybe if I said, sit and listen to yourself, listen for what, right? Like,
Yeah.
you would
Yeah.
probably start asking all these questions. So I think for everyone, it's so different. I think, terms that everybody can truly understand, is one of them is what you said, is compassion,
Mm.
right? Um, because we want to I think a lot of times we've watched movies, and I think we're going to see this big arrow, and we're going to feel it in our stomach, and
Exactly.
as everything's
Yes.
just gonna, all the signs, everything is, your hair is going to stand up. And
Yeah.
for me, I don't have hair on my arms because I sugar them, but so it's all these, things that are supposed to light up for you. um but some things are so subtle.
Yes.
Some things truly are that subtle. So creating a space for you to listen,
Mm.
for you to listen to yourself. And I think if you can't listen to yourself, throw on some headphones.
Yeah.
Put on some music and get out, either walk in nature or just go for a long walk.
Mm-hmm.
Give yourself either space to listen to yourself or space to listen to nature, or both. For somebody that has such a busy mind like me, oftentimes that is what I need to do. I need to have something to quiet down my thoughts in order so I can listen to truly what it is that I need to hear.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing. Creating a space, if you can create a space that's quiet enough in your mind, creating a space in your environment, right? So that's one thing for sure. And I think those go hand in hand as well. Cultivating more compassion.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe things are too loud for you to just sit and listen. That's okay too. That there's always going to be another moment for you to take that step. So cultivating compassion, I think, is a big one, because if you can't get there, how are you going to listen?
Yeah.
So I think those two things are a big thing: cultivating compassion for yourself, and creating spaces for you to listen. I would say those two for sure.
Okay. I love that.
And understanding that there is always an inner knowing.
Yeah.
Always. And no one will know that better than you. And that comes along with trusting yourself, I suppose. So I think creating those steps to getting to a place of trust.
Okay. I love that. Thank you. All right. So I want to talk a little bit more before we wrap up this episode. I can't believe the time has flown by already so much.
I know.
If someone wants to book a session with you, what's the best way to do that? And we've talked a little bit about how you have the sugaring option, meditation one-on-one or group, and then you often host different breathwork sessions or sound healing sessions. I've gone to one of those at your studio before. Or tattoo. What's the best way to reach out to you, make that happen?
You can find me on Instagram. You can find me directly on Instagram, or you can email me at lifeinc@gmail. Yeah, those are a couple of ways to get a hold of me.
Cool.
And yeah, because I do love being able to also, that's something, thank you for mentioning that. I do love to host here at the studio. I've been able to host a variety of different wellness events and just small private events that are just supportive of the community and building more community.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, this, sound bath meditation. I've been able to host this wonderful belly dance teacher.
That's so cool.
And yeah, just things that bring a little bit more joy and creativity and a little bit more, bring us a bit more closer to wholeness, balance. Yeah.
Love that. So if people want to find out about upcoming events, the best thing to do is probably follow your Instagram.
Yeah, probably just follow my Instagram. That would be the best way to keep up with any of the events that I have coming up.
Okay. And then for people that are virtual, because I do have some friends that live on the East Coast, is there something virtual that you offer? Would they, I guess they could probably do meditation with you still that way.
Yeah, definitely. That is something that I do am hoping to offer, is being able to do meditation like this. I think anytime that you can create a little bit of space for yourself and any means, it makes such a world of a difference. So why not?
Okay, cool. And now I'm just thinking too, do you ever speak for groups? Like if a community group wanted to hire you to speak for their membership or for something, could they hire you to speak about meditation or lead something online too?
Absolutely. I think that that's something else that would be very beneficial. For sure.
Okay, awesome. Is there anything else?
Mo.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add about your business or anything we haven't touched on today that you want to make sure to mention?
Not really. I think we've touched on a few different things. Just come visit me online on Instagram, and I am a private appointment only studio. So although I would love for you to just stop in, you can't just stop in. But yeah, feel free to follow me on Instagram and ask me any question, whether it be about any of the offerings that I have or about meditation. And no question is too small or too big. I love being able to be an open book for any of the resources that you may need.
All right. Well, to wrap up our episode today, I always ask everybody, what's your current I love it when for the world?
I love it when you're present enough to feel it, so then you can see it. And I think those have to be together. You have to feel it in order to see it.
That's a beautiful
I love it
one.
when you can.
Yeah.
Thanks. I was like,
yeah,
I can't
that's beautiful.
it.
No wonder. Yeah, the universe was like, you don't need to find it. Just say what you want to say. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
That's what I do. I because that's kind of what it is for me, especially with you too. I was feeling something before reaching out to you, and in order for me to really see it, I had to feel it.
Yes. 100%.
So I love it when that happens.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today. And for everybody that's listening, I'm going to put Yesenia's contact information in the show notes, and I'll share her stuff on Instagram. But please go follow her and reach out for a session, because I can guarantee you it's going to do nothing but add to your life. All right, so thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mo.